Hello, grades 1 and 2. Welcome to our music class this week for Friday, June the 4th. I hope you have with you the worksheet that I would have assigned for our last lesson. Here it is. And I thought we could take a moment to go through it and make sure you understood it okay. So what we did was along the top line, you were to draw a whole bunch of quarter rests, which were like the zig, zag, zig letter C all across here, okay? I don't know, if you get 10 or 12 in, that would be great. And those are quarter notes, just like quarter rest, just like a quarter note, equal to one beat. Then the next line of music, the next staff, you were to fill the second half rest and 5 more of them, they said, okay? So it said 5 here or 5, but I'm sure you could fit in more. And the half rests are like half notes worth 2 beats. Now, the neat thing about them, and an easy way to remember, is half is very much like the word hat. And these guys, when they're alone, actually look like little hats set on a shelf. Now, the third stanza here have very similar looking, only these hang down from the fourth line. So the hats, or half rests, sit on the third line. The whole rest hangs. So think of the whole being heavier, worth 4 beats, just like a whole note, and it hangs down from line number 4. So hopefully you were able to fill those in. Now underneath here, grab your sheet and a pencil or something to check it off, and let's talk about quarter rest, 1 beat. Half rest, 2. Whole rest, 4. Half rest, 2. Quarter rest, 1. Whole rest, 4. Half rest, 1. Quarter rest, 1. Whole rest, 4. Quarter rest, 1. So hopefully you had all those numbers in the box there, okay? All right, let's do the rest here, also with numbers. Now up here, you could have used a Q or an H for half or a W for whole, okay? So you could go back and put Q quarter, H half, W whole. And down here we would simply go through and do the same thing, the number of beats, or you could use Q for quarter, H for the word half, W for whole. Q quarter 1, H half 2, W whole 4, H half 2 beats, Q 1 quarter rest, H half 2 beats, Q quarter 1 beat, W whole 4 beats, H half 2 beats, Q quarter 1 beat. And that was your worksheet for this week. Or last week that you would have finished. Now for this week, you have a different one, and part of this is just the lyrics. I want you to practice the lyrics. We're going to learn how to play this together. You're going to have your imaginary bells. Remember last week I assigned people certain bells, and I'll review who the bells were assigned to for our song, "Oh When the Saints," okay? So we'll go back through that. And if we were together, some of you might have actually been assigned more than one bell. In fact, most of you would be assigned 2 different bells. Oh, When the Saints. Now, the next page has on it the actual scored music. And if you were playing, you would be reading these notes on the treble clef staff, and you would be playing them with the bell. So, some of you were assigned the C, E, and F. Okay, and so those are C, E, F, and then that note's G. So what I'd like you to do, if you're able, and I know this is tricky when you're at home, but you do have somewhere in your music book, we talked about lines and spaces and the names of those, and fill in the first 2 lines of all of those notes. So let me give you a little head start. C, E, F, G. Now these up here are for our ukulele players because they're also going to get the music, but you don't need to worry about those grade 1, 2 just yet. C, E, F, G, C, E, F, G, C, E, F, G, down to C, up to E, D. All right, and that's as far as you really need to take it for this week, penciling in those note names, okay? So if you were to play it, pull up your music, and these are the words, oh, when the saints. So how that would go with your bells, and I'm going to turn this down so you can see my bells, okay? C, so C, E, F, G, C, E, F, G, C, E, F, G, E, C, E, D. Try singing that with. Oh, when the saints go marching in. Oh, when the saints go marching in. So that would be kind of fun, and I hope if we don't get a chance this year to get back together, we will definitely work on this in the new school year, as you guys have already had some work with the bells, okay? Remember, our C bell was Xander, Noah, Victoria, and David, so you'll imagine you're the C bell. The G bell was Annika, Haven, Noah, and Diana, and the F bell was Henry, Silas, Aaron, and Felix, okay? So we did the C, the G, and the F. All right, so nobody was assigned the E bell, so we would have to have additional bells. That's why I mean some of you will have to play 2 bells at a time. Hopefully we'll have a chance to do that together. I would love to have that opportunity. Okay, let's go on now to our Pilgrim's Progress story. And here is our newest word that we are going to add today to our story. And we are going to add the word giant despair. 1 beat, 2 beats, 1 beat, 1 beat. 1, 1, 2, 1, 1. Giant despair. And that's how the rhythm would work on that. So add that onto your worksheet that I've given you. Hopefully you've been filling out the rhythms, and I hope you have your rhythm instrument with you today. Remember, I have my painter sticks, okay, which I decorated up, and that might be something if you had some painter sticks around. I know some of you have probably been doing some painting around the house and might have some extra sticks, and you can decorate. I just wrote a whole bunch of eighth notes on mine, but you can paint them and do whatever you like, okay? So we last left our dear friends, Hopeful and Christian Pilgrim, and they had hopped over the fence onto what they thought looked so much better, and it was called Bypath Meadow. Well, no sooner had they stepped over, remember, a horrible storm broke out, and they were able to find a few pieces of wood, and they quickly made themselves a makeshift place to hide, a shelter from the storm. And just as they were getting settled under there, really, really thinking they'd made the wrong decision, remember they heard the note? And they looked up, and all of a sudden their whole shelter was ripped away, and there was the giant despair. "What are you doing here?" he hollered. "How dare you come in my meadow? You have no right to cross over my meadow. Where are you going, and who are you?" Well, they looked up and said, "Oh, we were on our way to the Celestial City, and my name's Pilgrim." And then Hopeful responded, "And my name's Hopeful, and we are Christians, and we're headed to the Celestial City, and we're so sorry, we'll leave immediately." Well, he grabbed them by the scruff of the neck, and he said, "Leave? You're not leaving, you're coming with me." And he took them all the way to his very dark, stingy, dirty, damp castle called Doubting Castle. And he threw them in, and he locked the door, and he took the key, and he put it on his belt and left them there. Well, it was cold, and there was very little light streaming in, and it was dark, and there was all kinds of bugs and spiders, and it was not a nice place. It was damp, and there they were. They put their hands in their head and said, "What have we done? Why didn't we just stay on the path, even though it got a little rough?" And they realized they didn't want to do anything rough. They always wanted the easy way. Why do we always look for the easy way out? And they pulled out the Word of God, and they began to read. And they began to read stories of other people who were on their way to the celestial city, who looked for the easy way out. Other people complained, who always wanted things to be easy. The Israelites kept leaving the path and doing their own things. And over again, King David did his own things. And all kinds of stories in the Bible of good people who wanted to go to the celestial city and follow the good king, but sometimes got distracted and just ended up doing their own thing, and how it ended up in a not very good state. And here were these guys, not unlike some of the Israelites, ending up in not a very good position. They became more and more discouraged. They fell into despair. Despair is when you have no hope. Nothing can go wrong. I'm just in despair. It'll never change. It'll never get better. And it's easy to end up in despair, even during this time when people think it'll never change. We'll never have things go back to normal. But as they read their Bible, they were able to see how the good king never changed. And he was always willing to accept them back if they would be willing to follow his road, his path. And with that, they began to pray. Oh Lord, why did we have to do our things the own way? Why are we always looking for the easy way? And they were pounding their chests, and all of a sudden, Christian Pilgrim stopped. Wait a minute. And he reached in his pocket and said, I almost forgot. Just before I left, they tucked this key, and it's called the Promise of God key. Do you suppose it might fit the lock? Well, Hopeful said, we could have some hope. And so they put the key in the lock. Click! It opened almost instantly. And then they went to the next gate. The giant, Despair, was sleeping, snoring very loudly, fortunately, so as they walked very quietly, they wouldn't be heard. And they got to the next big door. They put the key in. They turned it. It opened too. And finally they got to the third door. They put their key in, and the door opened. And with that, the giant Despair leapt to his feet and said, what are you doing? You can't leave. You can't come walking on my path and Bypath Meadow and think you can get away with it. And they held up the Promise of God key. The promises of God say, I will never leave you. I will never forsake you. And when you walk through the valley, I will be with you. And with that, the giant Despair put his hands up and fell backwards. And Hopeful and Christian Pilgrim ran as fast as their little legs would carry them. They ran. They hopped the fence, and they got back onto the path that they had originally been on and said, never again will we leave this path and head to Bypath Meadow. We're going to get there. There's going to be no more problems. We've learned our lessons. We are not going to be obsessed with ourselves. We're not going to try and always find the easy way. We're going to make it. Well, next week when we get time together, we'll find out. Does anything else happen on their journey to the celestial city?